everyone, it's Miss Courtney here to bring you another Share a Story. Today I have a Halloween themed draw and tell story. Do you remember how these work? As I read the story, I'm going to draw little pictures on the board. And by the end of the story, all of my little pictures are going to form one big picture. And it's up to you to guess what the big picture is. You ready? This story is called Cousin Vlad. This is the story of a bat named Spooky. This here is Spooky. Spooky lived far, far away amongst the Carpathian Mountains, right here. Spooky was flapping about in the Carpathian Mountains one night when he happened to flap past his mailbox. He noticed that there was a letter there for him, and he flapped down excitedly to see who it was from, because Spooky very rarely got letters from anyone. As soon as he saw the postmark, Canada, Spooky knew that the letter was from his cousin Vladimir. Vladimir was the only person that Spooky knew in Canada. Cousin Spooky, the letter read, "We are having a family reunion this year at my house. Please come." And it was signed, "Your cousin Vlad." Well, Spooky packed his bag then and there. He put in dried worm tongues, pickled rhino horns, and marinated frog eyes. Party food that he'd been saving for just such an occasion. Then he started off flapping, 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 flapping through the dark Carpathian night. By dawn, he was exhausted, and seeing a man walking on the road below, he swooped down and asked him, "Am I in Canada yet?" "No," the man laughed, "but you are almost in Budapest. If you want to get to Canada, you had better take an airplane. It is a long way to fly." So Spooky walked to the airport in Budapest right here. He sent a message to his cousin to let him know he was coming and bought a ticket. Off he flew over the mountains and over the sea and finally landed right here in Canada. When he got off the plane, the airport was deserted. Spooky had expected Vladimir to be there to meet him, but there wasn't a soul around. He waited and he waited. Spooky had just decided to take the very next plane back to the Carpathian Mountains when the clock began to strike midnight. Bong, bong, bong. A strange little gnomish sort of man scuttled through the door and beckoned to Spooky to follow him. Outside on the driveway, there was a huge black coach pulled by 7 spectral horses. The gnome opened the door, Spooky climbed up onto the velvet seat, and the door closed. A moment later, he can feel the coach moving swiftly down a long hill. Then, all of a sudden, they were going up again, rumbling and bumbling over a rough track. Where are they going? The door opened, and the gnome motioned for Spooky to get down. Then, without a word, he jumped up onto his seat and whipped up the horses. In a moment, they had disappeared back down the road by which they had come. Spooky could see that the road dropped away into a canyon full of jagged pinnacles of rock. Gathering all his strength and clutching his bag in his claws, he flew wearily across the canyon and landed on the other side. Made it. He walked along a rough path through the forest and sat down to rest. This is a very long journey. His head began to nod, and he was almost asleep when he heard a noise behind him. He turned to see a witch sitting there, grinning her snaggletooth grin. "Come for a ride, dearie," she cackled. "Climb on my broom and I will take you where you need to go." What could Spooky do? He climbed onto the broom behind the witch. And then zoom! They soared to the west and turned and swooped back towards the east. They went so fast, Spooky had to clutch onto the broomstick with all his strength to keep from being swept off by the wind. And then they stopped. "End of the line, dearie," said the witch. "There's the place you're looking for. Go carefully." Spooky started across the field to the hulking dark shape that the witch spoke of. "What is it?" When he got closer, he saw that it was a massive, rambling house. All the windows were dark. Several were broken. Shutters hung crooked on their hinges. The garden was totally overgrown with weeds. Haunted house. Spooky walked up the creaking stairs and lifted the heavy knocker. Boom, boom, boom. The noise echoed through the house. A light came on in one of the tower rooms. There was a sound of footsteps. The door creaked open. A tall man dressed all in black stood there. He held one arm draped in a black cape across the front of his face, hiding all but his eyes. Those eyes stared at the little bat, making him shiver in his wings. And then all the lights came on. The gnome and the witch called out, "Surprise!" The vampire swept aside his cape and laughed. "Welcome to my home, Cousin Spooky. You are just in time for the party." And who was it? Cousin Vlad, the vampire. And that is the end of our story. See you next time.